Audiobook Academy. Book Summary. Uncle Vanya. By Anton Chekhov. Anton Pavlovich Chekhov included elements from a wide range of previous works in this one. Lyrical, psychological and atmospheric play can be discerned. The author stressed the individual in his psychological characterization, not paying much attention to the plot, which was merely there to describe the characters. Because we're constantly fighting with ourselves, this play takes place within each and every one of us. Both the writing style and the dialogue are straightforward. Even though the connections between the characters are chaotic and intricate, there is a sense of calm throughout the book. Despite the play's 4 acts, there isn't anything that can be considered a turning point. Even though there are numerous events and clarifications in the plot, the play begins and finishes peacefully. Characters' clashes are depicted in the play through dialogue and actions. The entrance of Serebryakov and his younger wife Yelena in the community could be considered a plot twist. All of the characters in this story are stale, lifeless, and wistful. Their entire lives have been spent hoping and praying for something to happen, but they do nothing to make things happen. With no purpose, excitement, or joy, their lives go on as they always have. That dream woke up Voynitsky briefly, but he didn't last long. He soon returned to his former life, and he was eager to spend it with his niece Sonia in a way that made no sense. Even though everyone in the story appears to be on the verge of death, no one has the guts to commit suicide. Chekhov portrayed his characters through talks that were honest and unapologetic depictions of their daily lives. It's hard to say what the story's message is, but the author did an excellent job of capturing the emotions of characters in various situations. The story opens with a look at Serebryakov's past. When we look at his past, we learn that over the previous 25 years he has gotten an enormous amount of money from the mansion he now lives in, allowing him to live the life of his dreams and have whatever he desires. Even though they had no idea what happened to him, the folks who had funded his education were quite proud of him. Nobody suspected he was living by someone else's set of rules, and his only legacy was that of a gifted and knowledgeable individual. While working, he had few students, and now that he's retired and has more time, he's been writing. However, his work was nothing more than someone else's opinions on life written down in a way that made no sense. He had a great love life, and he was always admired by ladies. The first woman brought into the marriage the house where the play is staged. Sonia was born as a result of that union, but everyone referred to her as Sophia. He remarried after the death of his first wife, who died at a young age. In this case, Yelena, a younger woman, was his choice of bride. He thought she was offended by his age, so he made a point of telling her that he was entitled to live as long as he wanted. Although Sonia was a young girl, she lacked in the beauty department. The residence was taken care of by her and her uncle Vanya. Sonia's stepmother became indolent after Serebryakov and his wife arrived, and her life basically came to a halt. The two of them had never spoken before, but after a while Sonia confessed her feelings for Mikhail Lvovich Ostrov to her stepmother. In spite of Ostrov's tendency to overindulge in alcohol, his love for Sonia made her bitterly disappointed. When she realized she couldn't go back and change her faith, she turned to faith and found salvation in that. It was during this time in his life that Vanya, Sonia's uncle, realized he'd wasted his entire life doing nothing. When he was 47, he realized that he had spent his entire life working in this mansion so that Serebryakov could devote all of his time and energy to his literature. That Serebryakov was merely pretending to be an intellectual, and that his writings would never make him renowned, was equally clear to him. It made him feel like a fool for trusting him and resentful that he could have done so much more in his life had he not. He couldn't come to terms with it. There was another family residing on the estate, and they were the survivors of his late wife's family. His first wife's mother, Maria Vasilievna Voynitsky, died, as did her husband. Marina was the only other person who resided there with her. In the eyes of the family, she was more than just a hired helper. Tilagin was a resident as well. In addition to helping out around the house, he also played guitar, which he used to lighten the mood. Everybody heard the professor say he intends to sell the estates and that Sonia and Vanya would be left with no place to live. Angry at the injustice, Vanya grabbed a rifle and intended to take out the professor himself. His wife Yelena was not paying attention to him when he fired the shot and he knew he had missed the professor. Vanya was like his niece Sonia, and he wished he had her back. He felt that his religious beliefs were sad and that he had nothing to live for. Wasn't that old, yet what to do with the rest of his life was a question he couldn't help but be concerned about. When Ostrov told him that the two of them were the same and that they had nowhere else to go, he didn't care if he wanted to start over or not. Dr. Ostrov worked in the villages as a doctor and became intoxicated due to the stress of his profession. Even though he admitted to having a drinking problem, he maintained that he is the best doctor when intoxicated. He was a lonesome recluse with no close relatives. As a result, he had a low opinion of himself and a lack of self-confidence. His greatest tragedy was that he felt nothing and had no one to love. Although Sonia was a perfect match for his needs, he never felt a thing for her. But he was really connected to Yelena, on the other hand. Her youth symbolized all he had and couldn't get back, and she was that for him. Yelena would make him feel young again, he thought. In spite of his repeated requests, she declined each time and was eager to leave the house. Ostrov came to the realization that his existence was meaningless, therefore he chose to leave. After the winter, the man stated he'd be back, but he knew he was lying. He thought drinking was the greatest way to get through the day and forget about his pointless existence. Yelena was a young, 27-year-old woman who was utterly depressed at the time of her death. She is the focus of the story, and her husband, an elderly, grouchy, and neurotic man, is the primary cause of her misery. In spite of her hatred, she never cheated on him or betrayed him. She never felt at ease in the place because of the feelings she had towards Ostrov and Vanya. Sonia was infatuated with Ostrov, the brother of Vanya's deceased wife. In the end, she and her husband left the house together, leaving behind a chance for a new life. Characters: Serebryakov, Yelena, Sonia, Vanya, Ostrov, Marina, Telegin. Uncle Vanya is a 47-year-old man who has come to terms with the fact that he has squandered his life. He and his niece Sonia had the same fate. At first, the professor's plans to sell the house angered him. He tried to kill him, but missed. He realized his entire life had been a hoax. The only thing he had going for him was Yelena, but she didn't give a damn about him. Sonia, her life was made terrible by her adoration of Ostrov. She spent much of her time working on the estate with her uncle, but she never had a life of her own. The only thing that saved her was her faith, because she was powerless to do anything. Ostrov, a doctor and an intellectual who was exiled to the Russian countryside. He lived alone and worked all his life. He is uninterested in everybody but Yelena, who has never shown any interest in him. He accepted the meaninglessness of his existence. Yelena, a 27-year-old lady who is married to a considerably older man, is caught in an unpleasant marriage. She was content with the way things were and didn't try to make any changes. She had a logical approach to life and remained loyal to her marriage despite the numerous guys who professed their love for her. Serebryakov, an elderly professor who brought despair and misery into the lives of everyone around him. In contrast to Vanya and Yelena, Sonia remained devoted to her father despite the hardships they had through. Old age and illness made him envious of the youth. He's a jerk who demands everyone's full attention. He avoids discussing his work, and he hasn't accomplished anything in his life. He was born in Ukraine in 1860 to Anton Pavlovich Chekhov. He went to Moscow Medical School after graduating from high school in his hometown. He married the actress O.L. Nipper because he had a cardiac issue. After starting to write plays while in college, he also published novels and short tales. There are many excellent short stories to choose from. Playwriting was greatly influenced by Chekhov's work. Uncle Vanya, Three Sisters, and The Cherry Orchard are just a few of his well-known masterpieces. He penned short stories about people whose lives were impacted by the realities of the modern world. His stories don't have any major characters or story twists. In 1904, he died in a hospital in Baden-Württemberg, Germany. Thank you for listening in Audiobook Academy. Don't forget to subscribe and smash that like button for more content like this. See you in next video.